everybody, welcome to another True Review. I am of course True, your Million G gamer, and today I am bringing you Emily Wants to Play 2 on the Xbox One. It's available both in US and EU marketplaces, I believe for a price of £6.39 in the UK and $7.99 in the US and EU regions. So let's have a look at the description then. Emily Wants to Play 2 offers tons of fun new survival horror gameplay and strives to creep you out. It's much larger than the original game, including new characters, new games, better visuals, and all new ways to scare your pants off. Ooh, misses. It is 7 PM on Friday night and you're heading to your delivery destination. Your next stop is some sort of crime research facility. What you didn't know was that 3 strange dolls were recently brought there for processing and storage. These dolls aren't ordinary. They have a mind of their own. The dolls have work to do and they're gathering new friends. You are only there to deliver a sandwich, but the dolls can't let any witnesses survive. Your night is about to take a turn for the worse. It'll be one of the strangest and scariest nights of your life. Explore the office, avoid the dolls, avoid their friends, and look for a way out. Emily will join in on the fun before the night ends because Emily wants to play too. So of course, Emily Wants to Play 2 is the sequel to the original Emily Wants to Play, who on Xbox was a bit of a Marmite game for people. There was a lot of people who royally crapped on the game, and then there was people like myself who appreciated what it was trying to do and actually enjoyed the game thoroughly. Apart from obviously there was a few very harsh situations where the AI was conflicting with itself a little bit there, and gave you some pretty much unwinnable situations, but thankfully these have been ironed out for the most part in the sequel. So the sequel basically does everything a true sequel should do. It does it bigger and better than the original. So we've got a bigger playground to play in, which is the crime lab mainly, but first of all, which I think is one of the best parts of the game, is the opening level, where it's a dream sequence. I think I'm okay to say that, to be honest with you. The game's been out on PC for quite a while there, and I streamed this game and I was literally banging my head against a brick wall of how to get out of this original, opening sequence of events. And it's quite clever how the developer actually come up with puzzles and tasks in this game, as the first game was basically, other than the hide and seek game that you had with Emily towards the end of it, was literally just avoid the dolls and survive in a very small confined house. Well, Emily Wants to Play 2 is a more structured affair. It's more objective based. You have a clear objective to achieve on each and every hour of the game, which forms the game's levels. Whether that be simply gathering a key card to unlock the next portion of the crime lab, or sometimes even the dolls, again tying in with the theme that Emily Wants to Play, which the first game didn't generally do that much. The dolls want you to play a game with them. Sometimes that game may be hide and seek. Sometimes that game may be tag. Sometimes it may be hide and seek where they're seeking you, and you've got to avoid them or not get spotted for a certain amount of time. So the game throws you these curveballs all the time with what you're supposed to do. This time we have 3 new dolls introduced to the mix, and I'll just quickly recap the original cast of characters. Originally we had, and apologies if I get these names wrong, because I always get the clown's name wrong. I think it's Mr. Patches, who was the clown, who when he spawned you had to freeze and stay still. His mechanic is the same essentially, but he's had a little twist to it where he shines a green light and you can move. He shines a red light, you can't move. So when he shines the green light, in order to despawn him, you have to run up and tag him. If you don't tag him within 3 cycles of his red and green lights, he will kill you anyway. Then we also have Kiki, the kind of like Victorian porcelain doll. She will run towards you and you've got to stare at her and keep staring at her, keep her in your vision, and she can't move and she will eventually despawn. If you take your gaze off of her, she will move towards you, and if she gets to you, game over. The third original doll was Chester the ventriloquist dummy, who was probably the most vicious one, and he basically runs after you. And in the original game, you had to cross a room threshold to despawn him, but that mechanic again has gone in the sequel. You simply have to outrun and outlast him this time. Thankfully, apart from one section in the game, which is specifically related to him, he doesn't chase you for very, very long. The new dolls. We have Greta, the burnt out kind of like child's doll, who is blind. She had her eyes gouged out by Emily, presumably, and she can't see, so she relies on the sound mechanic. So if you make noise, open a door, bump into any rubbish on the floor, etc., she will hear you and come for you like anything. We then also have the his name escapes me now, I do apologise. We do have then a mannequin who apparently was a mass murderer, and he was, or was he a burglar? I can't remember now what the text said, because the game has got a lot of text explaining what the dolls are inside the game, but he's basically a guy who wore a mannequin suit, a hollowed out mannequin, but due to that, the hinges on the mannequin squeaked a lot, so that's his tell that he's coming for you. And he's got night vision, and he will only attack you in the dark. So if you turn the lights on, he will go away. If you shine your torch at him, he can't kill you. That's his mechanic. And the final new one is the Jack-in-the-Box, who again the name escapes me. Weasel, was it? Weasel, something like that. Jack-in-the-Box basically appears. You hear the tunes of Pop Goes the Weasel, which anybody who's probably had a Jack-in-the-Box as a kid or bought them for the kids is a common theme in a Jack-in-the-Box. So the Pop Goes the Weasel becomes a sound of dread, because when you start hearing that, you have to locate the box straight away and tag it basically to make sure the box doesn't open. If you don't, this giant clown gets out and will chase you and chase you and chase you, and he chases you harder than Chester. You can get away from him, but it's very, very rare. If he gets out of his box, you are deaded. But luckily, when he does spawn, when the box does spawn, it is in your local vicinity, so you have to quickly scout around and find it as quickly as you possibly can. Then of course we do have Emily as well, who will chase after you relentlessly if she sees you, and has no weaknesses as such. You've just got to run for the hills when you see her. Now, as I say, each of the levels is split into an hour section of game, kind of. Not obviously real time, otherwise it'd be a hell of a long game to do. And you're tasked with, at the start, just gathering key cards, but then when Emily starts to want to play, you have to rush to one of the many whiteboards in the game. There's one in the break room, there's one in one of the offices, and these have clues written by Emily on what you're supposed to do. Now, one little fault I had with the game was, depending on where you ended the previous level, sometimes it was very difficult to get to the break room to read the whiteboard before the actual event started for that hour of gameplay. So a lot of the time when you first start, you immediately die because you don't know what you're supposed to do. So it would have been nice to just have the event start when you actually reach the whiteboard destination, so you had a fair crack at the whip to start off with. So turning to the game graphically, it's much of an improvement over the first game. There's a lot more varied environments. Obviously, you have two kind of locales in this time. You have the house of the opening scene, and then you have the crime lab where the majority of the game is spent, and that encompasses offices, break rooms, forensic labs, a warehouse, for example, power rooms, things such as that. It's a functional building which kind of like goes in like a lap into a circular motion once you've got all the areas unlocked there, so you can literally do circuits of the map, which strangely enough doesn't really give you a lot of advantage in this game as opposed to the first one, where it was a very small location. You could just form a route there to try and negotiate the dolls. But I say it's graphically more refined. I wouldn't say it's a massive graphical leap compared to the first one there, but because of the more varied locations, and we've got the new dolls as well, the lighting's definitely better, and the lighting effects from the torch definitely improved. It is a step up above. It's still obviously not this generation's benchmark quality that we look for, but it serves the game well. You shouldn't really have any issues with graphical glitches, other than sometimes you do get a little bit of clipping from the dolls when they're opening and shutting doors, and I only noticed this with the mannequin enemy. Sometimes his jump scares you so close, his head actually literally leans too far forward and goes through the camera, so you're basically looking down his neck. A little bit of an odd graphical glitch there, but I'm sure all that can be fixed. So turning to audio, let's have a listen for a moment.
Anyone here? I have a sandwich order. Hello?
It serves the game really fantastically. It does make a sense of dread coming up from the subtle music that happens to the loud bangs of the music when something drastic is happening and you know you're in danger, to the tells of all the dolls from Chester literally is a horrible call when he goes hoo hoo hoo. That is like a moment of dread when you think, oh, I've got to stay still and I'm going to find where he is and everything, and then you realise that you haven't stopped in time. Chester's little chuckle, Kiki's little chuckle as well. The new dolls, especially the mannequin, is squeaky legs. My god, he is horrible, and the action when he walks towards you is so frightening. It's horrible. I really dislike mannequins in the majority of games anyway. So having a mannequin enemy in this one was really like, my worst. I mean, some people hate clowns. I hate mannequins. So overall then, I really love this game. I streamed it for 4 hours and nearly got to the end of my 4 hour stream there. So it's not a very long game, but it's a hell of a fun game to play, and I just had so much fun with my viewers streaming this. It was just a really fun experience. Some the jump scares, which didn't generally get me, a few of them did get me, but because the bugs had been hanging out from the first one, you kind of knew when you was going to die. There was less ones that just crept up on you unawares, which the first game had a nasty habit of doing on regular occasions. And again, gone was the conflicting doll requirements. In the first game, you sometimes had Chester spawn, which means you had to run out of the room, but then you also had Mr. Patches spawn as well, which means you had to stay still. Obviously, you can't do both, so one of them's going to kill you. Thankfully, that is gone for the most part. I did have a few bizarre deaths where things I thought shouldn't have got me, but again, few and far between in my full playthrough of the game. So I'm happy to report it is a more pleasurable and less frustrating experience than the first one, which I think is why the first game got a lot of hate garnered towards it and was a Marmite experience for most people. Turning to achievements, it's mostly progression based. There's achievement for pretty much completing every single chapter, with just 3 miscellaneous achievements which can quickly be mopped up in a matter of minutes on game completion by just reloading various chapters through the chapter select. The story of the game feeds into the first game as well, and a little cutscene at the end lays way for a third game, which I sincerely hope we see. I do personally like this series. I know a lot of people don't, and a lot of people started hating on this game as soon as it was announced for Xbox, but that's what people are like nowadays, aren't they? But honestly, you'll have a fun time with this. All the frustrations from the original have been removed for the most part, and it's just a thoroughly enjoyable, fun, laugh out loud experience, and can be frightening at times. So just overall for me, a fantastic experience. It sets out it sets out to do what a sequel should do. Everything's bigger, better, refined, improved upon, for a more fantastic gaming experience. And I think with it being more structured than the first game, because the first game was, like I say, just literally survive most of the time. Well, this is survive and do X, or play a game with the dolls, which ties in with the title, as I said previously. It works so much better. The game's miles better for it, and I can't wait to see what Emily Wants to Play 3 is going to hold for us, because I've got a funny feeling we're going to get a trilogy here, and I sincerely hope we do. So if you haven't guessed it by now, I'm going to give Emily Wants to Play 2 a wholehearted recommendation of a buy. It's £6.39 in the UK and $7 EU and US regions. It's a steal. Yeah, sure, it's only going to take you 4 hours to complete if you're reasonably competent at the game, which I died a lot of the times, especially on level 1. It's a horrible man for designing level 1 like that, but clever at the same time. But it's only 4 hours, as I say, it took me to clear the game, but nevertheless, for that price, 4 hours entertainment, and obviously replay value when friends come round as a good old party game, a jump scare game, is worth it in spades. So yeah, a wholehearted recommendation of a buy from me. Hope you enjoyed the review, guys, and I will catch you on the next one.